Hey everyone, welcome to Encouragement Today. My name is Vinny and I'm here with
Lex. Hey.
What's up, Lex? I'm glad you're back on the show. It's a new set, new look.
Like,
this is your first time on here with it.
I know. I love it. It's incredible.
It's encouraging.
You have like Bob Ross.
I do. Yeah, we went through the list of why we chose those all the things last week, but there's no greater encourager than Bob Ross.
Right, like he encouraged me to sleep.
Yeah.
To rest.
Right? He was so good. His paintings, just a little bit of this.
Right. He was so gentle.
Oh,
kind,
yeah.
like...
Yeah. So like us. We're gentle. We're
right.
kind.
We should be like Bob Ross.
Yeah, we all should. I'm almost there. That's so funny. Your hair is there. Yes, that's funny. Funny thing about Bob Ross, though, we'll start the show here, I guess, is that we lived in an area where Bob Ross was literally buried in a cemetery right where we used to live in Florida. Yeah,
you can like pass by and see his.
You could see
name.
This little tiny. It's like off the side of the road. Tiny little cemetery in Oakland, Florida.
That's so random.
Bob Ross is there.
Wow, I didn't even know he was in Florida.
Yeah,
or from
crazy,
Florida.
Right? He was. I don't think he was. I think he was more a New England guy.
He migrated.
And because that's what they do.
Huh?
To
Florida.
Yeah,
seriously.
And pretty sure that's how that happened. But we are going to encourage people today.
Yes.
Right? And before we encourage people, what we like to say is like, share, subscribe, do all those things so that other people can be encouraged as well. Because that's why we do this show, is so that people can get some encouragement. Today's going to be a little fun episode. We're going to talk about how we can encourage you to be a better listener.
Ooh.
Right? A better listener. So I have to ask you this, right? Have you ever been like talking to somebody, right? And they're totally checked out of the conversation?
Yes, you could tell. So I always say, if someone says that's crazy 3 times, you know that they're not listening. That's crazy. That's crazy.
So like if they're like repetitive in their comments back to
they're
you.
not listening. If you were to ask them to repeat what you said, they'd be like,
Now, the other question is, have you ever been talking to somebody and realized that you haven't been paying attention at all?
It's more than I would like to admit.
Right? And so I think it happens to the best of us. And that's why we're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about some ways that you're not listening so good, right? And then we're going to give people some practical ways to become better listeners, right? Okay. So I think this will be fun. We have a tendency to have some fun on our episodes. So I don't know where this is going to go today, but the thing when you're in a conversation, right? And this goes with you, like funny with your mom too. You guys have a tendency to laugh at like the littlest thing, right?
And then, like...
Right? It's like you're there's always like, so you're paying attention because like the giggles are there. There's like, so you're typically engaged in conversation.
Right. At the right moment, the giggles there.
Right. Exactly. And it has to be that moment. It's not like you're saying something terribly bad. Oh, my cousin died. Like it's not at that point. Right. You know what I mean? It's at the right points. And so like, typically, and that's what we want to get at, is kind of show people how they can become better listeners. But the Bible talks about this, and it's in James 1:19. It says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this: everyone should be quick to listen, and slow to speak, and slow to become angry."
Ooh.
Right? So I feel like I'm a good listener. My wife would probably say I'm not such a great listener. But I see what happens to me, and this is one of the things we're going to talk about like not being a good listener, is that I have a tendency to get so excited about what like thought just came into my mind.
You want to get it out.
Like I want to get it out, and I just want to like tell the world, this is my thought, And it's like, and she'll say, I was saying something.
Right.
And it's like, but I was listening, but what I wanted to share. Yeah. It was like the thoughts there, and it comes out. And I have to I remind myself like not to jump in on conversations when I just have this like thought.
Right.
Right. I do that better now than in years past. but it's because I've gotten kicked under the table enough to know, like, it's a true statement. Like, because, you know, you got to get trained. If you're not like listening the right way, you can train yourself to become a better listener. And that's really what we're going to do today. And I think as Christ followers, we do need to improve this in our walk, because a lot of people come to us with problems, with things. You know, as a pastor, I've been in counseling. I've done a lot of different things. And if you're not a good listener, you miss things. Right.
Like
and
important things.
Yeah. And when you miss something, people will be like, remember when I told you? And you're like, you know, and it's like, oh, well, yeah, you know, and it's like, no, I have to remember what people are telling me in these kind of situations. Right.
It shows that you care.
Right.
It really shows that you care if you listen.
Because if you're not, like, then what does it say about you if you're like ignoring somebody during, like, they're sharing their heart with you, like dropping this stuff, and it's like, you know, later on, hey, remember when we talked about this? What? Like,
no,
I don't. And it's like, oh, that's like, and then how their esteem is just done, right? And so, you know, because people who care what other people are thinking, people need to care about what other people are thinking and speaking, right? It's important for us to do that, right? And what do they say? People want to know. I don't know.
People want to know that you care, not what you know.
Right.
Because we can sit there and tell them what we know, but who cares? Like, I want to know that you care about me.
Right. So. Right. It's not all about the information you want to give me.
Right.
Right. A lot of times it's more about that feeling of knowing that you care enough to listen to what I'm saying.
Yes.
You know? And so, like, my wife has a tendency to, like, she tells me everything. Right. So, and it's like, so
it's a wife thing.
It's a wife thing. And so as a husband, right, I don't talk as much as she does, right? It's guys usually don't talk as much as women do, unless you're Lance. And so, like,
until he gets home,
right? Oh, and then he doesn't talk. Get out of town.
I talk,
right? Okay, well, you know, that makes it even then. And so with that, it's like, you know, like some days, like when I do podcasts and things like that, she'll be like, "How come you're not talking to me?" And I'll be like, "Babe, I already got my words out for the day. Like, I'm so done, but I'm here to listen. Like, I'm ready to, like, listen to whatever it is going on with you." And so she has a tendency to dump, you know, all the stuff throughout her day, right? And so I've realized that a lot of times I need to just be a good listener in those situations, because, and then not interject. So.
Good.
Yeah. So here's some. This is what makes people a bad listener. Some things that make people make people a bad listener. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Number one would be not paying attention. Right. And I think. Yeah. So I was gonna say that, right? Like, so around the dinner table, right? If you're sitting around a dinner table, right, and you see this at restaurants, you see this anywhere you go, and it's like the whole cell phone thing got me going nuts. Like, when I'm sitting to eat at a restaurant, my phone is in my pocket. Like, I do it intentionally, because I don't want to be one of those families that everybody around our table is got their phones out and are sitting there looking at their phones and not engaging in conversation with each other, and literally not paying attention to a thing somebody else is saying. Right. And I think, like, that happens so much in today's society, where people are just literally on their phones versus engaging in a conversation with the person next to them.
Yes. And when you look at it from the outside in, like, it looks horrible. Like, there's one person that's not, and everyone else is, like, texting or whatever, and you're like, that person wants to engage but they can't. Right. So it's just a sad picture. So
not paying attention is a huge deal, and then not so much with just phones. There's so many other things that can be distracting. Like, for instance, when people, you know, families or whatever, have the TV on during dinner time.
That's true.
There's another distraction, right? Like, you know, you go to a restaurant and there's sports on TVs. Right. That's, like, super distracting for me, right? As a person that likes sports and likes that kind of thing. So it's like, I have to remind myself like
Don't look
I'm
up,
here
don't look
for
up.
the something else. I'm not here for the game.
Right.
And so like not paying attention can be hard because of all the distractions that are out there. And so we'll get to how to avoid that in the next part. But another thing would be interjecting with a personal anecdote. Like this is my problem, right? I have the solution.
Right.
Right. So I have to interject right away
You know
and
what
tell
you
you.
should do? Like,
Yeah, and it's like, well, are you listening? Like, I wasn't finished with my whole thought
Right.
or whatever, and you're completely interjecting, right? And you're thinking it's the right thing to do, right? Because you're like, I'm going to help this person,
Right.
but then you're not fully listening to the whole story, right? And it's like this is my downfall when it comes to being a good listener. Number two, number two, right? Because what it does, it makes the person that's talking to you feel disrespected and that you're not listening.
Right.
Right. And so what we should be doing is respecting the person that's talking and listening rather than I got the answer. That's
a hard one.
Well, as a guy, it like you want to be the problem solver.
Right.
Right.
By nature, that's you guys.
Yeah, that's and it's like if I can solve the problem in 3 words, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, but no, I'm just saying like, but if like there's something that comes up and it's like I can solve that problem or that thought or whatever, it's like,
But you're like, wait to the end, wait to the end, wait to the end.
you know, and then you're sitting on it. And, okay, so second thing is interjecting. Third thing is judging the speaker. I want you to think about this from a church perspective. Think about it from a church perspective. How many times have you been watching somebody as they're preaching,
right?
And you're not hearing a word they're saying,
right?
Because of what they're wearing,
or something, right? It's
right,
true.
Right? Like, how come?
And you're like, what are they wearing?
Why are they wearing orange shoes? Like, you know, like complete distraction. They could be saying the most awesome thing that but you're completely judging, or they shared something and like you're starting to judge based off of what they were saying.
I can't believe they just said that.
Right.
Why
you know what I mean?
Say that?
And it's like that happens so much when you're interacting with people. It's like you start judging that person. Right. And the Bible talks about judge not lest you be judged. Right. So we need to be careful in that we're not judging somebody just based off of whatever. So, you know, some people will tune out or get defensive if someone shares an opinion they disagree with. Right. And then you start judging like, well, I don't agree with that. Right. And it like, from like I've been around a lot of churches and a lot of things, and when people start preaching and they're teaching and whatever, and it's something I don't agree with, like immediately my heart goes to like, wait a second, right? And then, but me, I want to listen more now, right? Like I find myself going in a little bit more, trying to figure out what do they mean by that,
instead of just like judging from the first statement. Right.
So like for me, I go in a little, some people are just like,
that's it.
I'm out. I had a guy at church the other day come up to me, the visitor, and you know, pastor had said something and tuned him out immediately after he said it because he was literally judging it. And I said, I'm pretty sure this is the angle he was coming from. And he was like, oh, I missed that. Yeah, you miss it if you start judging people too early.
Oh, I almost did it. Oh my gosh. Well, I was listening. I was trying
you're
to
good. You're good.
But I think that there's more to it with that. Someone that's judgmental has like critical spirit.
Yeah.
So they almost want to come into it with something already. Like they already come into it with knowing they're gonna find something.
Right.
I feel like when you have that judgmental.
It's true, and you know, it's funny that you say that because the person that I was talking to, they were like, "Well, we've been here, there, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Yeah," and you're going to these places with the same attitude.
So it's you,
and so you're not receiving fully,
right?
Right, and so like I kind of engaged him in that a little bit, and it's like, you know, what else did you get out of it? You know, like, and it's like, just be careful, right? Don't judge what people are saying.
Shoes.
Right. Number 4 is this, that you're a bad listener if you're not asking questions.
Lance gets on me with that one. He'll say something, and then I'll just be like, oh, okay. He's like, you don't have any questions.
You got nothing. You got nothing for me. You got nothing for me. What do you mean? Yeah, that's true. because then it's like you really don't care enough
That's what he
to
thinks. I'm like, no, I
to
can
kind
stop.
of get the conversation even more, or
Right.
care enough about that subject or what that person is doing to get into the details of it, right? And so, yeah,
True.
I can see that, how not asking questions would make it look like you're not listening,
Right. You're not
right?
interested.
Yeah, because technically, I think sometimes if you're listening, the questions will come, right?
Like, why did that happen?
Right.
How?
How in the world? It's like, well, why? Yeah. So if
That
you're
makes
not
sense.
listening, or you're not caring, right? And I think that's pretty simple. That can go hand in hand, right? So you're not caring about this, so you're not listening, so therefore you're not asking the questions.
Which that makes
And
sense, because it'll be something like about cars or trucks or something, and I'm like, I don't say it out loud, but I'm like, I really don't care. And he'll tell me, and I'm like, and he's like, that's it. I'm like, he's like, you weren't listening. I'm like, I was, but I don't know what else to say.
right,
So that makes sense.
yeah, it's like I don't know, I don't have any input into that,
Yes.
like, or whatever, but for the person that is engaged in the conversation with you, this is and
Their
this is
thing.
yeah, and it's
Right.
like, if you want to be a good listener, you probably want to be a little bit more curious about what they're saying,
That's true.
versus not caring enough to ask the next question, right? So let's
It'll
go.
get better.
Let's move on to the next one. Number 5 is this: talking over the speaker.
That's a cultural thing, okay?
I'm not saying it's you, Lex. I'm just saying, like,
I'm saying it's me. That's my biggest thing. Interrupting. Oh my god.
yeah. Yeah, I think this is with any, like, I mean, I grew up in an Italian home.
Italian, this is
You
the
had to
thing.
be loud,
You had to, or you
right?
won't be heard.
Yeah, you won't get
That's
heard.
sad, though.
And it's the same thing in other culture. It's like,
Right.
the louder you are, the more heard you are. But when it comes to this, like talking over the speaker, my wife says this a lot about this podcast that she listens to. Not ours, of course, because she loves our podcast. And she listens to a few different, like, literature podcasts and things like that. But there's some of them she can't listen to because people will talk over the other person.
Really?
Like, they'll just completely, like, just,
But you know what I said?
it's like, and it's like, it just, like, it's like chalkboard on,
You have to
nails on a
listen to
chalkboard,
who you
like
are.
going for her. It's like, I can't even listen to that because they're just arguing and, like, going over each other, and there's no, like, pause and then the next person go. You know what I mean?
Right. I
There's
get
no
it.
not leaving room for that. There's always just right over the top.
It's like chaotic or something.
Yeah, and so, and like, I think a lot of podcasts can do that because that's the podcast that they're doing, right? Is like there's like this fight going on
Right.
between, like, the good or this idea versus that idea. But when conversation and just normal conversation, when you're like that, going over somebody, speaking over somebody, it minimizes what they're saying.
Right. And you're not really listening. You're
Right.
just waiting to say the next thing. So while they're talking, you're thinking of something to say. So
Yeah.
you're not listening to a word. I get it. I'm guilty of it.
You're guilty of it, and you start yelling over the people. But I think this is a hard one, because when, like, for me, that's one of, like, interjecting and talking over are probably the two ones that I struggle with the most, because like with the culture thing
Right.
of going over and, like, trying to say what I want to say. But that's a sign of a bad listener. I'm not listening to what you're saying. I have to get my stuff out.
And
My
sometimes
stuff
it's
is more
hard.
important. Right.
Some people talk slow. When someone talks slow, I'm like, God, please.
When do you come in?
I know.
Right. When do you?
And then I'm like, oh my God.
So
You know?
so what?
That's
At
terrible.
what point can I come in this
Yeah.
conversation?
I'm like, God,
That's
please. I'll say that in my mind. I'm like, what? I'm like, please.
when
So
am
then
I
I'm always
supposed
like,
to?
oh yeah, that's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
How many times did you say it? That's the problem, right? 3 times, you're out. All
Ah.
right. So the last one is this:
That's
is
terrible.
waiting to talk. This is a sign of a bad listener. You're waiting to talk. So you're formulating a response. And getting to a point where you never say anything, right?
Waiting to talk. Okay, so like,
Yeah.
huh? So maybe introverts could struggle with that. Like
Right.
with an extrovert, and they're like, when do I talk? Like when? And so they're just
Right.
like,
I guess from the point of like the person that's speaking, it can be distracting because like they see your wheel spinning.
oh,
Right.
and they're like, are you gonna say anything? So
Yeah.
they're trying to carry the conversation, and you're just like,
Right. And then that person doesn't feel like they're being listened to.
yeah,
Right. Because all you're doing is like
you're just staring at
you're in a
this.
daze or
You're
something.
weird.
You know what I mean? Like you're, and I have a tendency to do that on podcasts. Like when we're doing this, right? You'll be talking about something or somebody else will be talking, and my mind's going because I have to be thinking about the next thing that's coming up or where we're heading in the you know, I got my points of this, you know, so I got to keep it in, you know, and for me that becomes is probably super distracting for other people, but on camera probably
You probably
doesn't
can't
look
tell,
doesn't
right?
look that way. But if for you it might be because I'm sitting here looking at a note while you're talking to me sometimes while I know the camera's off of me, and it's like I'm just trying to see where I'm going. Don't get
Right.
distracted.
And then we're
Keep
like,
going.
right? And you're like,
I'm listening. I'm right there with you. And it's like that's kind of how I can see that from that angle.
right.
But in like meetings and things like that, when you know, when people are talking and you're like I'm literally trying to formulate what I want to say so I say the right thing at the right time at the right, you know what I mean? Like, and I think for a lot of people that are
Perfectionist.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I'm trying to think of the
Oh,
word, but
I'm sorry.
no,
That was that one.
you perfectionism is good, right? But analytical,
Oh,
right?
yes. They're
For the
computing in
yeah,
their
yeah, yeah.
mind. Like,
So it might look like they're a bad listener, but they're just like super
processing.
analyzing
That's
and
what it is.
processing the
Yes,
situation,
processing it.
you know? So your perfectionism brought me to analytical. So
I got
you're
you.
good. You're good. All right. So we talked about all those bad listening skills. Let's help people become better listeners. Okay. We're going to give you some practical ways, okay, that you
I'm gonna
can
take notes.
become a better listener. Here are some practical ways. And here, what we've been doing lately on the podcast is we're going to have in the description, there'll be a link on there that you'll be able to download these as well.
Cool.
So yeah, we're stepping up
Moving
our
on
game.
up.
Come on, we're stepping up our game here on the Encouragement Today show. So inside the in the description there'll be a link. It's a PDF. It's a little thing you can print out
I was about
or
to say you can print it out.
yeah,
Put it on your fridge.
you can make it something on your phone as well.
Yeah.
And just have it in there. It's a pretty little thing.
It's like
Pretty.
a nice
I
looking,
don't know.
like,
Pretty. It's nice. It's a
nice.
flyer. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty good. So please download it.
Do it.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into some things of how you can be a better listener. The first one is practice active listening. Now, active listening. What do you know what active
No,
listening
wait,
is?
explain.
All right, so I'll explain it. Active listening means giving your full attention to a person who is speaking. An active listener focuses mentally and physically on their communicating partner and can express interest and engage meaningful in conversation. So it involves verbal and nonverbal communication, skills like eye contact, open body position, and stillness. And you don't just wait to talk, let the person say what they want and wait for an organic moment to add into the conversation.
That's good. I like how it says physical as well.
Right.
Because you can like look like you're listening, but if your body language is like
Yes.
you know, like
So-
this way and the person's right here and you're just like
Right. So this, I do have to mention, this is based off an article. This is not my thing. I took this. And so when we talk about things, and I'll put that in the description as well, what article it was that I found this at so that we give credit to where credit is due. So it'll be in our notes and descriptions. But because I'm not that smart to come up with that. I'm
Make it
good,
look.
but I'm not that smart. So yeah, I think that's, you know, you need to practice those things.
Right.
Right. And so like when I was starting to first public speak, there was a lot of things that I needed to practice doing, like losing my New England accent.
I know.
Right.
It's hard.
So it was super,
Yo, no.
super hard.
Super high.
Right. Like my Boston accent will come out in me being loud and boisterous. But typically when I'm just speaking on a normal level, it is contained.
Right.
Right. I do struggle with certain words here and there, but I had to practice that immensely to become a better speaker. Right. And so when you're thinking about, oh, how do I be a better listener? right? You practice,
Right.
right? Practice. They don't
Makes
say
perfect.
they say
I'm just
that, but
kidding.
it just makes you better,
And
right?
conscious about it.
Right.
To work on it.
Yeah. So that's good. So practice active listening is number one. Number two is be supportive. So somebody that's a good listener will be affirming in the conversation, like, so,
man, you really went
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Oh my.
and that encouraging, right? Like
Right.
that. Hey, welcome to the encouragement
I
show,
know.
right? Today's show. And so, like, you want to be like a person that's interjecting your own thoughts, opinions, and information, right? However, you want to be open, right, to what that person is saying, right, and try
Right.
not to disregard their feelings or diminish their pain or anxiety.
Like, oh, that's
Right.
it. Or
Yeah, yeah, and
Get
like
over it.
sometimes you might not even be aware that you're doing it,
right.
but make sure that you're affirming what they're saying and saying, "Hey, yeah, I understand," right?
Mhm.
Like, and saying, "Oh, I bet maybe it's something that you've been through, or maybe it's something you can't even relate to, right? And that's a hard thing. Like, oh, I've never done that. However, and something
Right
else,
for you. Or
right? And so being supportive of whatever it is they're going through. Ah, man, I get it.
Right.
So
That's good.
that's how you. A second way you can be a better listener. The next one is keep an open mind. Now, this is a tough one.
When it comes to like controversial topics.
Yes. Yes, because
You're like,
I'm thinking of like some either political discussion or
Yeah.
religious discussion or
Or-
whatever. It's like keeping an open mind is when your mind is made up. You know what I mean? This is hard for people
yes.
to keep an open mind, right? Like when you're coming from even like a theological background and you believe one way versus somebody else believing another way, and it's like this constant debate.
Like
You
once
know?
saved, always saved, or
Something
like that.
something like that. Even
Right.
I'm thinking of like more political stuff and like keeping an open mind with a person that doesn't share the same belief system as you, right? Doesn't share the same values as you, yet you are talking to them, and rather than be dismissive, right, and saying I don't care about what you're saying, right?
Have an open mind.
Having an open mind to be able to listen to what they're saying.
Right.
This I feel as in a culture today is probably the hardest
Oh
thing.
my goodness, with everyone's opinions.
Right.
Like right away, you're just like, eh.
and this is what happens. Like when you see interactions online, nobody's listening to the next person.
No.
Right.
They
It's
just want
all,
to get their stuff.
they want to
off.
one up you.
Yeah,
They
this
want to
is
get
terrible.
whatever it is, and nobody's changing anybody's mind
No,
online either.
no.
It just like that doesn't happen, right? And like so don't be that person online.
Right.
That's all
The
I'm
troll.
saying. Don't be that person that has to respond to everybody's thing that doesn't share the same mindset as you.
Right.
Right? Like for me, like my wife and I, we joke about like people's responses to things, and it's like I just wouldn't get involved.
Right.
Right? Like, because I'm not going to change their mind.
Right.
Right? Now, I get that some people want to do that, but not my gig. Right? But when it's in conversation, it's tough. It's a real tough thing to be like open-minded about somebody else's theology, political stance, even a sports team. It's like, who's the greatest, basketball player of all time, football, whatever. It's like, you're not really changing people's minds in these things,
At this point,
right?
You're just sharing
Yeah.
what you like.
So
and what they like.
being open-minded is a hard one. So I'm going to read what it says in our notes here. Simply listening with an open mind facilitates trust and shows that you can hear another person's words without having to share your advice or point of view. My suggestion is this: if you're in a situation where somebody doesn't share the same things as you, you're open-minded to the point of letting them share what they're sharing.
Right.
Right. And I put it this, I'm going to agree to disagree with you.
Right.
Right.
Well,
Hey,
which is
listen,
okay.
I
That's
get, I hear what you're saying,
That's maturity.
but at this point, I agree to disagree, and let's just agree to disagree on that and move forward. I can see where you're coming from,
Right.
right, and kind of work towards something that
Common ground.
yeah, a commonality, because if there is none, that's tough, right?
I
Yeah.
feel like with that specifically, I've been getting better, and I've come up with like phrases like I don't ask questions like too much with that,
Right.
because I'm like I don't want to get into like something where we're like, so I'll just say something like, "Oh, is that so? How did you get to that place?" Or,
That's
things
good.
like that.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
Yeah. But and that's you're showing you care,
yeah,
right? You're asking questions, right? You're doing good
right,
here, right? You're being empathetic, right?
Mhm.
Which is good. You're understanding what they're saying,
right,
right? And those are all things to be open minded,
Mhm.
right? So the asking the questions, the being empathetic, all that understanding. So that'll help when it comes to being open minded. So that's great.
yes,
That's great. Those are really good. All right. So the next one is this. Is to mentally note key details.
Hmm.
So, like in conversation, when somebody says and shares something, you're taking note of something the person says
That's good.
so that later on you can bring it up again,
Like, oh,
right?
I know they like matcha, or they like blue, or
Right.
blue
And it's
Skittles.
so repeat the speaker's last few words back to them to show that you're observing what they say. And that a lot of people say like this is key to a good listener.
Mhm.
Like if you're talking to somebody and they share whatever it is. Oh, when you said this, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then you go on with it. So remembering the parts of the conversation that stood out to you, so you can ask follow up questions. And note any confusing details so you can ask clarifying questions, which is what you were talking about
Mhm.
in the previous one
Is
with
that
keeping
so?
an open mind, right? Is that so? Right? So mentally taking notes. So
I like that, because I feel like on my, like, if it was someone doing that for me
right,
and they remembered, I'd be like, wow, they really were listening to what I said. So
right. And when people
good.
are listening to what you say, I was just repeating what you said. See what I'm saying?
It validates.
Yeah, it's pretty good there. Oh, yeah. All right, let's go on to the next one. All right, next one is what we've been doing is ask questions.
It's good
Asking
stuff.
questions is a great way to show you're engaged in and paying attention to what the other person is saying. Clarifying questions,
To understand.
right,
Good.
can help you understand what the speaker is saying, while asking probing questions can encourage them to share more. And that's your probing question when you're like, so,
Right.
how did you get to that?
Right.
That's a probing question.
To know, because
Right.
then you can know more about that person,
Right.
and like where their mind is or their spiritual
Yeah.
thing.
How did you come to that conclusion?
Yeah.
Like I would have never came to that, but however, it's like
Right.
it's like really like pulling something out of them,
Mhm.
right? And so I think asking questions is huge
Yes.
when it comes to any type of in conversation with somebody and listening to somebody. It's probably the most important thing to do
I agree.
to show that you're involved in the conversation. And you were saying that you have a hard time with that at home.
With
I
specific.
I feel like
subjects.
I feel like in scenarios it can be difficult if you're not paying attention to
Right.
find out the questions. But if you are keeping note of what the people are saying, then you can ask that next question,
Right.
right? So yeah.
Or take notes like, okay, I don't like cars, but now I'll know what kind of car you like so that I can use it
Right.
as a gift idea in the future or something. Or
Yeah, I hear. Yeah, so that's great. So all right, so now we got another one here. It says, so ask questions. Next one is perform active listening exercises.
how do you do that?
So practice. We're having some fun here on encouragement today. Practice active listening by working on exercises designed to hone your skills. An example of active listening exercise to write a summary
Come on.
of information following each conversation you have. I feel like I'm in college.
Are
it's
you
a-
gonna write a
It's a good
mean-
way to get into the habit of forcing your mind to stay active and engaged during interactions with others. So
Nobody got time for that. No.
no, ain't nobody got time for that.
I'm just kidding.
So here's the thing: when I am in an important meeting or things like that,
Yes. Okay.
right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
I will do that. Right. I will take down notes.
Yes.
And write down key things that I need to remember. When we're in meetings with your husband,
Mhm.
Lance, and there's things like he's like, he's always changing things and doing things, and it's like if I don't take notes, I won't
them.
remember because things change so fast around here. It's like, it's unbelievable.
You can see.
Right? Yeah. So, but so you have to be actively listening.
Right.
When it comes to your husband, when it comes to work environments and things like that. Like you might have a boss that's the same way, you know what I mean, where they're always constantly they're super active and they're speaking, and it's like you may not be able to get all of it unless you take notes. Right. And so,
and you don't want to drop the ball or something.
Right. That's the worst.
Yes.
You know, it happened a few times where it's like, you know, I may have missed something because I didn't hear, or I wasn't paying enough attention, or there was so much that was said that you're like, I missed that one thing, you know?
Same.
Yeah. And so you have to practice these things. And I find myself making bullet points now. I don't put all of the information in, but it's like, okay, got this. Okay, boom. That was the whole conversation. So then I can go back in. Hey, remember when you said this? This is what you meant, or whatever it was. So that, you know.
Good.
So yeah, practice doing that. There you go. Next and last one is use positive body language.
That's a good one, because you can tell when someone is engaged or not.
Right. Like
if you're talking to me and I'm just like, yeah, this means you're closed off, you know, or like you're bored, like, please help me. Or if your body's over here and you're talking, you're just like,
this would be the worst podcast ever. Back to back. Let's try it. So Lex, what's going on?
Well, I don't know.
This is so bad. I can't even, like, it's not even
like
that. No, it's awful. Right. So body language is massive. It's a big thing. Like your eyes, your facial, you know.
Expressions.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember on a previous episode, I was talking about how my face can give things away real fast. Right.
Where you're feeling.
Yeah. And so at times it's got to be like, I gotta pause my facial expressions to kind of
bad face.
Yeah. But I don't. Yeah. And so it's like sometimes I just need a minute to get into a conversation with somebody from a previous conversation. Like, and it's like, hold on a second. Let me like, whoop, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like
it
you got
been a crazy conversation.
Right. And then and I'm like this ain't about you. This is And so there's a lot of that happening. But your body language is super important. If you're not, you know, showing that you're engaged in the conversation, you're showing that person that you're not caring at all. And so when you know, hey, getting closer to the person, when you're open up, you know, it shows a lot of things. Like I love criminal stuff, like true crime. And so they do a lot of like interviews with people, and they give you like these little cues as to if a person is lying, or how a person
from
is
like the way they look,
from
where they look,
or how they're talking, how their hands are on a table, if they're doing like it's like crazy, if they're like fidgeting, right? If they're
like moving their
right,
leg
if they're fidgeting away from you or whatever, like all these little cues mean something. And that like, and it triggers something in our brain to kind of say if a person is listening actively or they're totally disengaged from the conversation.
That's good.
So you might not even know any of these cues, and you might not even realize you're doing it, you know, legs crossed, even your legs.
That's crazy.
Right. And it's like, no, that person's not really listening. Like, and it's like, no, I wasn't, you know, it's like, you know, it's like, those are the things. It's like, that's crazy how important body language is. So monitor your body language and emotional reactions when another person speaks to you. Certain habits, for example, turning your body away from the person, not making eye contact, or shifting around in your seat may indicate passive listening, right? Or not listening at all. Face the person you're talking to and use positive movements like nodding, leaning, denote that you're giving the speaker your undivided attention. Facial expressions and other nonverbal cues may indicate judgment, even if you don't say anything. So be mindful of your reactions.
Watch your face.
So, literally everything. We didn't even read that beforehand, just so you know. Like everything that we just talked about is what's in there.
Yeah,
right?
that's good.
And we didn't even read that before.
Right.
So I just went with the bullet points, y'all, when I looked at the article. So, like, that's crazy, right? And so when you think...
Crazy. Are you not with us? Sorry, I cut you off. Oh.
We're the worst listeners ever. We need to practice all of these.
For real.
But that's the point, is like, we're not always going to be perfect at listening, right? We're not going to be the best at something, especially if you're not very good at it at all at this moment, right? But it's practicing these little things that can help you and make you a better listener, because the Bible tells us to be, slow to speak, quick to listen, right? That's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth.
For
right?
real.
And so
That's funny.
to listen twice as much as you speak.
Right.
And so I think that, as you grow in this area and become a great listener, I want to encourage you to practice some of these practical ways to become them, because you may not get it the first time. You may not get it the second time. But if you keep on practicing, you will get better and better at being a good listener. And it's important for us as Christ followers to hear people's heart, to care what they're saying, and to be a good listener so that we can give them what they need and when we respond in a Christ-like manner.
Yes.
So,
That's good stuff.
Woo. I started getting preachy there.
I know.
I coulda. All right, why don't you pray us out, and then I'll close the show.
Okay, so Lord, I just pray for each and every person that's on here. I pray that you would help us to walk out this scripture and to walk out what your word says, for us to be slow to speak, quick to listen, and slow to anger. And I just pray that if there are things that we need to work on with the area of bad listening, show us and reveal to us, even today, right now, the things that we can do to start to work towards being a better listener, so that we can show people around us that we love them, Father. And I just pray that you would take off any blinders or take off anything that may be blocking us from wanting to love others by showing them that we care through listening. And I thank you for all that you're going to do as we walk this out in our lives with the relationships that you've placed in our lives. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. And I'll just say this. I encourage you to open your ears and listen to what God is speaking to you as well, because he's always speaking. Yes. And I just want to bless you. May the Lord bless you. May he keep you. May his face shine upon you. And may he bring you peace. So be blessed. Be encouraged. We'll see you in the next show.
Bye.